What it do, bruh? Talk of the town, Nintendo, Doc Trey, still holding it down, still make the best games, and you know this, bro. It's the truth. If you don't like it, you can have that seatbelt.
So this past generation, publishers made a killing off of double dipping sales from Nintendo Switch versions of third-party games. And they made a ton of money off of this. People buying multiple versions of the game so that they could play it on the go or it could play it anywhere. And I think this time around with the Nintendo Switch 2, it's going to be quite a bit different. I mean, there's still going to be a lot of people double dipping, but not nearly as much as before. And I hope these publishers realize this, because if they're treating the Switch 2 version like the alternative version or a companion version instead of an actual main version, it's going to turn around and bite them in the butt. Now, the reason why this isn't going to be the same as last generation is actually multiple reasons. First, we have the economy. It's rough out there right now, and also the fact that it's looking like probably Switch 2 games, especially the third-party games, are going to be $70 like they are on other systems. So you're already going to have people right there less likely to buy two versions of the same game. Now, another reason for that is the fact that since the Switch 2 is going to be roughly PS4 or PS4 Plus or whatever horsepower, along with DLSS upscaling, the difference between the Switch 2 version and a PS5 version shouldn't be too dramatic, or not as dramatic as the difference between a lot of these Nintendo Switch versions versus the PlayStation 4 version or versus the PlayStation 5 version. It's not going to be as dramatic of a difference to actually warrant purchasing both versions, because one of the main reasons that people purchase the same game on the PS4 and the Switch, not only because you be able to play the Switch version anywhere, but also because they realized that for the majority of these games, there was a big difference in how the game looked. So it's like, oh, well, I know this will come out for the Switch eventually, but I'll get this version because I know this version is going to look way better than the Switch version. So buying two copies of the same game actually made sense. But when you get to the point where the Switch 2 version looks almost as good as those versions, the rationale behind buying two games for two different systems starts to fade a little bit. And I hope these publishers realize that's probably what's going to happen, because they made a killing off of coming out with third-party games on the PlayStation and on the Xbox, and then getting people to buy it, and then waiting and releasing a Switch version a year later and double dipping on the sales, because the Switch version would be full price again a year later, and they laughed their way to the bank. But that's probably not going to fly as easily this time around, especially when people are, they're on to that. They know that kind of thing is coming. And if the customer believes that there won't be as big of a difference between the Switch 2 version and the PS5 version of the game visually, and they're mostly a Switch owner, they're just going to not even buy the other version at all, and they'll just wait for the Switch version. Which means that these publishers really need to consider not releasing Switch 2 versions of third-party games after the other versions, because in the end, it's only going to hurt their sales, because if it comes out after and people are expecting it to be similar in visuals except being able to play it anywhere, they're not going to buy the other versions. The other version is going to sell worse, and they're just going to wait for the Switch 2 version, and then the game publisher is going to think, oh man, this game's flopping. It's like, no, they were just waiting for the Switch 2 version because they didn't want to buy both versions. So this generation, these publishers need to actually make sure that they're releasing the Switch 2 version of these games on at the same time as these other versions. Now, of course, there's going to be older games and ports of remasters and remakes that hit the Switch 2 that sell fine. Of course, because these games were not available on the Switch 2 before. But if they get back into the habit of purposely pushing back the Switch version of these games to try to get the double dip numbers, it's going to come back and bite them in the butt.